Greetings, gamers. Today we're going to have a little jaunt through the history of one of the longest running regional tournaments, Battlefield Birmingham. I'm going to talk to Harry Allen, who is the organizer, about how it started, where he's got to, the little challenges along the way, and the kind of things that help make Battlefield Birmingham one of those events that people still want to go to after all these years. But before we do that, I wanted to remind us what it was like before professionally organised events started turning up, before there was the UK GT, before there were tables and terrain and opponents that didn't argue and all of that stuff. When people planned weekends and went in hotels. Before that, people didn't do that. People spent time in tents, camping, sleeping on floors. And for those of a certain age amongst us, I remember going to hotels, no names, no pack drill, but there were hotels with mold growing everywhere, with spiders living in your beds. I remember going to hotels that had failed to understand our booking requirements and ended up sleeping with another hairy middle-aged man rather than anything better, because they only had double beds and I wasn't driving 4 hours home again. I remember getting to a hotel, meeting up with a couple of other carloads of my friends, having a few beers in the sunshine, and then getting a phone call from another friend saying, "I'm at the hotel, where are you?" And we were at the wrong Premier Inn. Unable to drive, obviously, at that point. You've got to... I'm sure we've all been to the wrong Premier Inn, and I have done it more than once. This was a good one, though, and I'm sure there's a story that we can share later. When we look back at... We've got to look how far we've come with tournaments. I remember going to... In 2000, my first 40k tournament. I'd been to many tournaments in the 80s and 90s, but my first 40k tournament was in 2000. It was in Sutton Coldfield, and the terrain was virtually non-existent. Then what happened? You were requested by the organizer to bring with you enough terrain to cover a quarter of the table. So when you arrived, you covered a quarter, your opponent covered a quarter, you spread the terrain out, something that looked right, and then you left it there until the end of the tournament when you went and hoped that nobody had nicked your terrain and you took it home with you. Now you go to events, not only is there terrain on all the tables, but it's reasonably good and it's fairly placed. You know where it's going to be. There are pros to that and there are cons to that, and there's been a recent resurgence of player-placed terrain, which I don't like for tournaments, but, you know, there you go. Venues were usually school halls over a weekend, or a village hall, or a university atrium with the sun beating down on you at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. It was, you know, there was a range, and Warhammer World was always the titanic place to go if you really wanted to play on some nice tables in a proper setting. And I remember them rebuilding that entire building so that it had all of those castellated insides, like a courtyard. And then out of the blue, Maelstrom Games in Mansfield opened, and it was a dedicated gaming venue. Tables were set up, they were already there, there was terrain around, you could actually go and you could play games in a venue that was fit for purpose. About the same time, or perhaps just after, Element Games in Stockport set up their own hall. Firestorm in Cardiff did their own thing. There's probably some others, perhaps big in Bristol, I'm not sure. But now, any discerning gamer can find themselves a dedicated gaming palace somewhere not too far away from where they are. This is a seismic shift from where we were 20 years ago. 20 years ago sounds like a long time if you're 20 years old, but when you're my age, 20 years is just yesterday. And I still marvel at the distance we've come. So when people moan about the venues not being good or the terrain not being good, shut up, because 20 years ago, you'd have had some kind of hissy fit if you'd have seen the kind of places we were playing. Anyway, after that ramble, Harry is going to talk to us about the evolution of Battlefield Birmingham. It's one of the best events that I go to. It's competitively priced. You get free food included. It's got a bar on site. The venue is terrific. Harry runs a relaxed but professional tournament, and it attracts not only the best players in the country, but it also attracts lots of club players who just want to go for fun. So you never know what you're going to get. And that is one of the beautiful things about it. So let's hear what he has to say. Okay, yeah. So I've got Harry Allen, the tournament organizer from Battlefield Birmingham, on the line. Harry, how are you, mate?
Hello, you're right, Mike. How you doing? You
Yeah,
good?
good.
You
But
recovered?
I know I haven't recovered from my defeat to Eldar. I went off in a bit of I flounced. I did a bit of a flounce in the last game and flounced off in a huff. But other than that, it
Ah,
was a great event, and thank you very much for putting it all together. Now,
no worries.
for the listener, Harry is the organizer of Battlefield Birmingham. He's been doing it for God knows how many years now, and I've been going
Uh,
for almost all of them, I think, nowadays.
yeah, I believe so. I've had a quick look through our previous events, and I believe it's just a little over 12 years now.
God, Street.
Yeah,
I was nothing but a whippersnapper at 12 years ago.
yeah.
But no, that's great.
I think he still had hair back then. I
Oh,
don't know.
thank you. There's enough of that. Let's move on. So we're going to have a chat about the Battlefield Birmingham, the series of events, how they started, and how they've got to where they are now. So, Harry, just tell us a little bit about what made you start organising them, where they were, the venues you used, the problems you had in the early days, and then we'll have a bit of a break.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so uh, back then, 12 years ago plus, I used to play quite a few events. I used to go up and down the country, going to all the sort of events that were back around, that were on around then,
Yep.
going to Warsaw, um, Poland, and so on and so forth. And there was a group of us. I don't know if you remember the group, Good, the Bad, and the Dudley.
Yes, of course
We
I do.
we we were a thing at a certain point in history, but we were kind of like bemoaning the fact that there weren't many events in the local area. All the events were like at least over an hour's drive, maybe 2 hours, up into Mansfield,
Yeah.
Liverpool, London, and Norwich, quite far away. And they would moan for a long while, and I was like, that's as they want.
I think I
And I
know
was like,
who the people are that were moaning. I can picture them in my head now.
yes, I mean the names, people may or may not know the names, but I thought, well, I'm not gonna moan. I'm gonna do something about it and start my own thing.
Mm.
So I thought, I've been to a lot of events. I'll take the elements of those events and do my own. Take all the little best bits, cherry pick all the ideas and things that I thought worked and things that didn't work. And I mean, we tend to do two big singles events a year, and idea was taken from Open War, if you remember that.
Yeah.
They did two events in the year and spaced them out, nicely.
Yeah.
I added the team event after a certain while. That was taken from Mayhem that ran down in London for a while.
Mm.
I thought, oh, that little added little spice, a little bit of competition amongst friends. When you're driving home and you're talking about, oh, who did this, who did that, who let the team down, who was like the star player, and all that sort of chat. And I
Yeah.
thought, oh, yeah, I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna add that in.
Yeah, and
It's a little,
this was before there were a lot. There were hardly any gaming centres. I think the Maelstrom in Mansfield had been
yeah,
set up by Rob Lane,
yeah, that was
and
one.
And I think, was Element going then? I'm not sure it was. I don't think so.
I believe it was. I think there was mainly those two and Firestorm Games
Down in Cardiff.
down in Cardiff, but it wasn't what it is like now. I've seen the photos. It looks really, really lovely there.
Oh, it
But
is.
it was basically just when I was going down there, it was just the downstairs of an old cellar
Yeah,
almost.
I've been there. I know it was
Yeah,
just up. It was only 200 yards from
cold.
where they are now, but it was in the back of it was a tin roof shed, concrete
Yeah,
floors. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes, it was like different levels and it was a little bit cold, but
Mm.
we 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 we, we just made do back then, didn't we? So,
Yeah,
we
don't
just
get
got
me
on with it.
started. Don't get me started, Harry. Otherwise, I'll start telling you about the kind of places we used to play when I first started. And I with
Yeah.
that was, and there was one particular place in Sutton Coldfield that was terrible. Anyway, let's move on.
Yes.
So you decided that you were going to take the initiative and do something about it.
Yes, so yeah, we I was part of a gaming club in Birmingham, Ladywood, if that means anything to anyone. But they had a upstairs room in this like kind of pub, and I thought, well, that's enough for 8 tables, 16 players. And I cobbled together what terrain I had back then. It wasn't as important.
Mm.
It's old hills made of polystyrene, vacuum formed plastic that you could get back then, and
Yeah.
I mean, I kept it for a long time, but yeah, and just you slowly build up a terrain collection. That's always kind of been my main hobby is building terrain. That's always fascinated me.
Mm.
So like a game like Necromunda is really a kind of up my street
Yeah.
where you get to really build a board and a theme.
Yeah.
And I try to carry that through with my board building. Like you'll notice that my ice mats now will all have ice terrain on them. The desert ones will have matching terrain, and so on and so forth. So you
Mm.
get a little bit of a theme. Some terrain I feel can be mismatched on boards, and they don't look quite um, immersive.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
so
no, I know exactly what you mean because I remember going to events, oh, crikey, in the early noughties.
mm,
And in those days, part of the rules pack was you had to bring
yeah, I know.
25% terrain
Yeah,
cover for yourself with you. So everybody
yeah,
brought all kinds of terrain and you never knew what you were going to get. And you left it
no,
on the table and then you picked it up at the end of the weekend when you went home.
yeah. Hopefully, no one had spilled a beer on it or crushed anything. Yeah, yeah. It was. We just made do. It was a tougher breed back
I think
then.
it was a different time. So tell us a little bit about how you organised your first Battlefield Birmingham then, Harry.
Well, the very first one was probably just made up of just friends that I knew from the circuit.
Mm. So
So
there was just two of you then.
no, it was just me. Um, it was it was just me. I had some friends. Carl Bickley, who needs a big shout out. He's helped me move stuff from day one. I'm
Yeah.
sure I owe him some. I'm sure he's going to get arthritis from all the help that he gives me. But I just remember Carl lugging up tables like up the fire escape
Yeah.
like no one's business. Yeah, so the first event was basically populated by people that I knew, like Liam Royal, Brett Armitage,
Yeah.
Gaz Jones, and you know
Yeah.
Matt Robinson. I believe they all came to the first one, um, and some of the players that were part of the club that played in the pub. So yeah, it was only 16 players the very first one. That went off okay, and just generally just learned, and it just seemed to gather more
Mm.
people as I went on. We then moved into the big room, um, and just built up from there. Really, that's just trying to generate good word of mouth is, I think, the most important
Yeah.
aspect of any event because I've seen a lot of events over the years come and go, um, because people start saying negative things about them, and that then feeds into other people who will have a negative view in it and they've never even been.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it kind of snowballs from there really. So you try and create a good atmosphere, good crowd, and then they start bringing their friends, and it becomes like a bit of a community
Yeah,
sort of
and
event.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think you've got to try not to be too insular as well, because if you're not careful, it all these events can turn into nothing but events for a bunch of mates. And
Yes,
I think what I've liked about the development of Battlefield Birmingham is that you've still got the people that you know, but there are
mhm.
people coming from all over the place. I had a crafty cigarette with a fella called Tim at Battlefield Birmingham who'd come down from Scotland.
Oh yes, yes,
And I thought that's commitment. That is to come all that way down, and
yeah.
he'd never been to an event before, and I'm sure he'll come back now.
Yes. He was Adam Ryland's kind of
Yeah,
plus one at the time.
yeah,
So yeah, he told me he's coming down to the one in March, but we'll move on to that in due course. But
good, good. So you've got the pub. What happened to well? You obviously become more successful. What happens next? How do you grow to the next level? What do you do next?
well, you'll have known that we've moved around quite often.
I've
You
been
know,
to most of them, mate. So
yeah, you've seen most of the venues we've been to. Um, yeah, so we got to the point where we started outgrowing the Ladywood Club, and you have a look around, find some kind of. We found another social club in Rubery. Um, that was a really big hall. We actually even ran um, a Warhammer Fantasy event alongside that. We
uh-huh.
only did it once because, God love them, they do like a bit of a moan, and I didn't really understand the Warhammer Fantasy side of things that well, and I think the people that I passed it off onto weren't that, you know, clued up with running events. So from
Was
there, we just stuck to 40k.
yeah?
Um,
Was this the social club up the road in Great Worley?
no, near Great Bar. No,
I can't remember. There was
no, no. You're thinking about the one after. No, this was in Rubery. It had terrible parking, and yeah, it was. Uh,
it wasn't the best. It wasn't the finest hour then.
no, we only used that place once because they, yeah, they tried to mess us about
Yeah.
with not letting us in to set up for the event and so on and so forth. There's like a fat old bloke who actually who actually owns it,
Yeah.
and then there's a up and atom lady who kind of knows everybody, who books everything, who basically just runs the entire show.
It's like
Everything was organized through her
she's
and it was fine. And then this big slug of a man just who does nothing except collect profits was like, no, you can't come in on the Friday, Saturday only. It's like, okay, but yeah, that was horrible.
yeah.
That I was having to sit up so fast I tore a muscle in my shoulder carrying all the boards, and the whole thing was agony, and I hated it. But
So
we got
nobody warns you that being a tournament organizer is actually a physically dangerous activity, do they?
oh yeah, no, that was absolutely awful. That took forever to heal up. But yeah, so we were in Rubery, and then now I think we go on to the place where you mentioned in Wheelie Castle.
That's it. Just up the
So
road
we
from the KFC and the
yes,
Was it Sainsbury's at the bottom of the hill? I can't remember.
Asda,
Asda.
yes,
That was all
yeah.
right. That was a nice little venue. That was.
That was fine because I'm a postman, and I deliver my post around that area, and I kind of knew that they had a function room. I popped in and had a little look at it. I was like, that's brilliant. I speak to these people every day. They know me, I know them,
Mm,
and we did a couple of events there
yeah.
actually.
Yeah, we did.
I kind of liked that at the time, but in the end they started messing us about again. They kept double booking us with wrestling. You see a lot of these kind of wrestling or fights, where they put up a boxing ring, and they
That's
kept double booking us. So I was like, no, 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 no. I booked this 12 months ago, so how am I double booked?
mm.
And I was like, no, no, it's too risky to have these flimsy people,
All right, leave it
messing
like
us
that.
about.
So
Yeah,
we had a couple of events there,
yeah.
and then
Oh, yes.
well,
I
then
know.
we
Yeah,
moved over to what I think was one of the best venues we've had. But hold on a second, Harry.
yeah,
Let me just save this if that's okay.
yeah.
So Harry, now the next venue after the one in Worley Castle
All right.
was the one where I think a lot of people will remember, because I think this is where you really got a name for yourself, and we started to have um, competitors in the sort of 100, over 100, didn't we?
110, I think, is our max
Mm.
at that point. Yeah.
And they used to organise photographs of us all sticking our fingers up at you. I enjoyed that bit.
Yes. You know what? I still need to. I need to update that photo.
You should have done it at the weekend. You got a nice shot from up on the balcony there. You could have had everybody in.
I know, but because of the camera rig um, in that room, trying not to get all that electronics in the photo.
And the
Um,
leaking roof as well, which was a bit of a surprise.
well, that wasn't so bad, but the weather was really bad on that
Yeah,
Friday,
it was. It
and it was
was.
closing roads. It was covering Scotland in foam.
Yeah, I get
Uh,
it. I get it.
yeah,
Okay, so
but
tell us a little
anyway,
bit about
Cadbury
the
Club.
Cadbury Club. Now, it was the Cadbury Social Club.
Yes, yeah. So you got Cadbury World in Bourneville, and they had a very large social club for the workers, but not used as much because people don't use social clubs as often as they used to.
Mm.
Yeah, it had brilliant parking. Um, Setting up was they were all really lovely there. Um, yeah, and that's when we really started to, the ball really started rolling. We were able to increase our capacity to 110. I remember events selling out in 58 minutes,
Yeah, I mean that's in
110
its
tickets.
day. That's a lot of that's one of the biggest
Yeah,
in the country.
yeah, it was. People were pushing, oh, you're going to need to find a bigger venue. But you know what? I just, I liked it so much. I just thought, no, this is good
Mm.
because this is before Best Coast pairings or the other sort of large tournament apps. So this is when we still had to do everything pretty much manually.
I remember looking at the stage, and there's
Yeah,
Dan for the
yeah,
entire 13 hours a day or whatever it was, with his head buried in a laptop, typing up
yeah,
on a spreadsheet.
yeah, constantly just yeah, just tapping away like a little ferret and just yeah. So having going larger at that point wouldn't really have suited
Mm.
the current situation. But
How many years were you there? Because it was three, wasn't it? Three or four?
yeah, we were there probably 3 or 4 years. Yeah, that's probably about right.
Yeah, I
Yeah, but
enjoyed it. It was a cracking little venue. I really enjoyed that.
yeah, yeah, I miss it. But
So what happened? Why couldn't we? Why did we have to stop going to the Cadbury Club?
well, um, at first we COVID shut everything down first.
Mm.
So we had an event probably
I
a
was there the week before. Yeah,
week before the
yeah.
lockdowns started. Um, and so the Cadbury Club was closed for 2 years, there or take, give or take. And over those time, that time, an electric fault had developed in one of the back rooms. So when they went back in to turn everything on, check everything was as it should be, a fire started breaking out in the ceiling of one of the back rooms, and no one noticed for a little while. Um, and when they did, they called the fire brigade. The fire brigade came. They hooked up their fire hoses, into the floor. They take those covers off
Mm.
the floor, hook into the mains, and there wasn't enough pressure, and they had to just sit and watch the place burn down.
Oh God.
Yeah, if you go on our event page, there's actually a video of that happening. Somebody was filming it from high up in one of the apartment blocks, and yeah, it's very sad to see it go.
So, what kind of pressure did that put on you? Did you have events booked at there for after COVID?
Uh, N no, because we were being a little bit safe at the time because lockdown started coming in and then going and then coming in, and we didn't want to put on an event with the risk of it being cancelled
Mm.
because people start making plans and I know some events, were risking it a bit more, putting on events saying, oh, it's all masks
Yeah, yeah.
and hand sanitizers, but I was like, well, what's the point? If you want to be safe, don't
Don't
have an
go.
event.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, don't even put on an event if there's that level of risk. So, we chose to just hold back a little bit until this all blew over.
All
So,
right. And how? And so now you're looking for another. So it all blows over, and I'm assuming that you're looking for another venue. Is that an easy thing to find?
oh,
Do you just roll up and say, oh, I'm looking for a venue
oh,
on a Saturday?
no, no, it is an absolute nightmare. So, COVID, everything was backed up. All the large venues were backed up with like weddings and other social gatherings, and I think a lot of businesses used it as an opportunity to, you know, price gouge,
Mm,
desperate people because they got paid during the lockdown for being closed
yeah,
and then but they missed out on a large proportion of profit and decided we'll make that back up on all these desperate people looking to hold events. And personally, also, I needed to see if I still wanted to do it.
yeah. Well, after a
So,
couple of years off, then your
yeah,
life's changed, hasn't it?
exactly. I mean, I searched over 50 venues to find the Cadbury Club, and that's pretty much my last choice because when I saw the photos, I was like, that's going to be out of our price range. But luckily, we worked out a deal. But so COVID ends, we start to feel comfortable to put on events. I feel like, yes, I can still do this, and we're struggling for a venue. Just down the road from me, we had a shop looking to hold events.
Mm?
It wasn't very large. It wasn't very warm. It
Oh,
wasn't very
this is the one
dry.
on the corner, isn't it?
Yes, in Netherton.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
The
the guy
toilet
who runs it's a
situation wasn't
really nice
great.
guy, but you're right. The
Yeah.
venue is basically a workshop, isn't it?
Yes, I
With
think it was a former garage.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'd known Steve for many, many years. He was, managing the very first Games Workshop that I'd went into
Mm,
as a child. Um, so I'd known him for, most of my life. Um, and that was really like kind of a bit of a proving ground for me to see if I still wanted to do it, see if I still had the get up and go.
yeah,
We stayed there for a while. It was within budget, um, and I was able to develop like my new terrain system, and I think we had a new edition as well, and learn
we
that.
we did, but also you've got the advantages now of things like BCP coming in, so that you
Yep,
can a
that had
lot
come in.
that admin
Uh,
is all taken away from you.
exactly, and um, we held back on using it right away because there were still a number of bugs at the time. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah, I remember.
remember if some events were getting completely kiboshed by all the information just disappearing and
Mm. Well,
like the
there were some competitors to BCP. I remember at one event I went to use something called West Coast pairings instead of Best
West Coast
Coast.
pairings. Yes, was that Australian? I think.
Yeah, I think it was. And
Yes.
I'm not sure if there was, I don't know, whatever happened. Now that and I was reluctant to use it to begin with, but now every time I go anywhere, I use it. And I think there's a downside to this, and it's nothing to do with events. I think the downside is that now one organisation has got all that data,
Hmm.
people tend to think that data can inform the way they build and play their armies, and I think that works, but only for the top 20% or 10% of players. Everybody else really doesn't matter what you take because you're only going to win two or three
No,
games, whatever happens. So don't even worry
exactly. I
about
mean,
it.
we've entered an era where there's professional
Yeah,
40k players whose job it is to you know be as good as possible.
yeah,
So
yeah.
unless you can kind of compete with that level, are you going to be are you going to be taking it that seriously? Because if you do,
Well,
you're going to be a little bit disappointed.
you are, but a lot of people do. I mean, I'm on my hobby horse here, but a lot of
Mhm.
people will look at all the stats. They'll build lists that are the same as those that have done well in when they're wielded by some of the top players, and then they'll wonder why
Yeah,
they only win 2 or 3 games at a tournament.
but
Well,
that in itself can be an enjoyable process anyway. So
yeah, of course.
that is like kind of like their hobby, like the research and the learning and yeah. But I used to enjoy that sort of stuff. Don't get me wrong,
Mm,
but
mm. So tell me about it then. Tell me how you. So where are we now? Are we up to
uh,
date now?
no, well, we haven't got to Halzone yet.
Oh,
So the reason why that building was, not up to standard is he doesn't own the building and the landlord refused to, upgrade anything.
yeah.
So he was a bit hamstrung in what he could do, which is understandable. Um, and it was actually the owner of the Netherton place
Mm,
that put me into contact with a man called Simon who worked at Halzone College. He knew him through doing Lord of the Rings, and so it was actually the owner of the Netherton store that put me in contact with Simon, who runs events at Halzone College.
yeah.
So he's given away an event where I'm, you know, paying him to use the room, but he just felt it was the right thing to do, that we should move on to a better place, which is, you know,
Noble.
brilliant.
Yeah.
It's no small thing that.
Yeah.
So I got into contact with Simon. We had a meeting at Palzone College, which happened to be the college that I attended. Um,
Oh, was that
and
was that when dinosaurs still roamed the earth and that kind of thing?
well, I'm not quite as old as yourself, but
Nice.
definitely post dinosaurs. But
Touche.
yeah, no, it was back when the Nokia phone came out that had
Okay.
Snake on it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So you were there, and he put you in touch with Hales Owen College, and I'm assuming you went to have a chat with him and a look around.
yes, yep, yep, and gave us all the different options and all the different price points. Um, so I hire the room and do the food as a complete package.
Hmm.
So, I mean, our prices went from like 40 to 50 to include that. I've always historically been like tried to charge as little as possible for an event, but we'll get onto that. So we've run 3 events there now.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I got to say, I'm always singing your praises because I think
yes,
the
thank you. Yeah,
Battlefield Birmingham events are really well run. The venue at Hales Owen College is superb, and the price is a bargain. To be honest, for what you get, you get
yeah, yeah,
you get exactly the same as you get going to a UK GT without having to pay for an overpriced food truck for your lunch on 2 days.
yeah,
And the venue, to be honest, is as good as anywhere. It's got a bar, it's got a bistro built in the same premises. You know
yeah.
what could you
That's
not
it.
like?
And it literally has everything that we, you know, could
Mm.
have wanted. So
And it's scalable, isn't it, Harry? Because
yeah,
they've got several different halls or rooms. So depending on the
yep,
number of players, you can actually upscale if you needed to.
yeah. So you went to the doubles event, correct?
Yeah,
That was in the seminar room next
yeah,
to the bistro.
yeah.
Like that room. That's brilliant. Love it. Great for smaller events. Um, Now the last event, Battlefield 21, we were supposed to go to the sports hall. There was a miscommunication with the booking, and the college needed it for the Monday after. So uh, we were offered the theatre, um, and I thought, well, that's really good. That's great. It worked exactly for what we needed it for.
Mm.
Um, and if we need to go above 80 players, we can go to the sports hall, see what that's like. Um, but I think with 80 players, I think we would have been a bit lost in that large sports hall.
Yeah, and there was
So,
plenty of room at the in the theatre.
oh, yeah,
Plenty
yeah,
of room, and we even had room on the tables next to each mat, so you could put your casualties and
yeah,
your trays and your
that's it.
gubbins all there.
I,
So,
I hate being too cramped in,
yeah.
like interfering with the other table next to you that,
All right. Talking of
you know, my,
interfering, I'm going to
Mhm.
interfere. Hold on a minute. I'm going to download this bit.
Yeah, no,
Okay. So that was a great event last weekend in the theatre.
thank you.
Really enjoyed it. It was terrific. Now, want to talk about what you've got coming up, Harry, in the next few months. But firstly, your terrain is always really good. Where'd you buy
Thank
it
you.
from? Where'd you get it from?
Oh,
And what? Because it's not the. Earlier on, you talked about sort of growing a collection of terrain. This
yeah,
now looks like it's proper terrain that's designed for the job.
yeah, that's well, I sold all the old terrain, um, and I invested in some 3D printers. Uh, for
Okay.
anyone who doesn't know, 3D, it's not the resin printers, it's the PLA, the plastic on a roll printers. Um, I scoured the internet for certain files, suitable um, objects that can be printed. I found the manufactorums, the large
Mm.
buildings you might
Yeah.
have seen.
Yeah.
I thought they're they're really good. They're just about the right height, and I wanted to go for like a printed plastic because it's very hard wearing.
Mm.
I had a
I.
lot of MDF terrain, and I found that over a while it did start to degrade.
Yeah.
Like it would soak up like any spillages on the tables and expand and start looking a bit, shoddy. But yeah, so and I just got to work, just
So I'm just
printing and
interested.
printing
I'm
and
just
printing.
interested to know what. So this isn't a 3D printer. This is some other kind of printer. I didn't know there were different
It is
kinds
a
of
Yeah,
printers.
it's a 3D printer. It uses a roll of plastic and it gets fed through. Um, it's a bit of a learning curve, and there's a resin printer that uses liquid resin for doing models. That's more for
Right.
miniatures. You know my army that I
Yeah.
used?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was all 3D printed, but resin.
Right. I've got no
Um,
idea what you're talking about now. I'm
no, but some
completely
people
confused.
might be interested in that stuff. But yeah, it's a whole different hobby in its own right, 3D printing. So I had three printers. I borrowed two off Dan, my
Mm,
co-organizer.
mm,
So I had five during that really hot summer,
yeah.
just printing out all this terrain to get. I've got now enough 40 sets. Um, so I've got enough for
How long
80
did
so
that
far.
take you to print then? Is this an overnight job or is this longer than that?
No. For example, do you know that one large building with the two floors?
Okay, so this is basically the same size as the UK, roughly the same size as the UK GT, big L's, yeah, but without, it's not
Yes.
quite as high, but I know which one you mean, yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's the one. That takes around about 28 hours straight printing.
For each one,
Yes, for each one.
and you've got 40 sets.
Yes. But I had five printers working on those. Yeah, sometimes I was getting up at like 3 in the morning to go check on them and change over the print. And yeah, just I went hell for leather printing as much as I could as soon as I got the design down that I wanted. Um, I spotted that, Games Workshop started doing their own events, didn't they, in America?
Yeah,
And they were putting their stuff down on the um,
acetates,
clear,
yes.
clear. No, not acetate. They used like a thick plastic.
Oh, that's what I use. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Perspex.
yeah, perspex, but that's really expensive.
Yeah, it is. You
I
don't need it.
surprising. No, and it gives you like cocked dice because of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
thickness.
yeah,
So I thought, okay, acetate, that's kind of cheap. I can ring the out edge in permanent marker,
yeah,
so it's really clear, and you can still see the battle mat underneath that
yeah.
you've gone and paid, I don't know, £80 for or whatever. So
And I like that because I think it's nice because it does make it very clear where area terrain
Yes,
is.
and it also helps with setting up your objectives or getting to models or looking for stray dice
Yeah,
because you can just lift them up and you know exactly where they're supposed to go back.
yeah.
So
I know. I'm on board with it, mate. I'm on board with it. In
yeah, I
fact,
thought it was
I was hoping you were going to give me a set of that, but it's not going to happen because
well,
if it
yeah,
takes 24 hours to to print one piece of it, that's
yeah,
gonna.
I think it's around about like 8 days. I think
Oh God.
8 days if I kept it on continuously.
Oh, well, look,
So
it's good and it gives you a nice environment. So, talking of nice environments,
yeah,
how do you manage to keep? What do you do that keeps the event friendly? Because it would be really. I mean, I looked at some of the players who were there and have
hmm
been going for years. These aren't fly by night players. There's some players there who are the best, some of the best players in the country and arguably the world. And yeah, every time you go to Battlefield Birmingham, it's really nice. It's friendly. Nobody cares. You get a
yeah.
really nice mix of people. How do you do that?
Well, it's kind of you you kind of have to just build up like a bit of an ethos. I try and keep the event kind of like light and fluffy.
Mm.
Like, you know, whenever I'm promoting it, it'll be very tongue in cheek. Um, and kind of you kind of give off that vibe to start with. Anyone who's, being a bit gamey or, not playing in the right sort of manner, um, I kind of I have been known to not let them come back. Um,
Have you had a
because
quiet word with them?
yes, so, like if I can have a player who can give five other players a great game, those are the sort of people that I want back,
Yeah,
and I will actively make sure that I engage with those people more. I mean, I don't know how often you get to speak to your tournament organizer, uh, but trying to make yourself, as accessible as possible, and
mm.
you give off what you want to get
Yeah.
back.
I
So
do notice that, and I know that you go and make a point of talking to those players that are either the first tournament they've been to, or they're there for
yeah,
fun rather than winning. A
yes,
lot of the other more professional events, I noticed that the organisers will spend 99% of their time with the big names, the big name
yeah,
players, because well, that's what they do, because their events are about winning and profile rather than just having 5 good games of 40k.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's a little bit different. But also, one of the things that you do really well is your prizes are fantastic. I don't know how you
Yes.
afford them, but what you do is you make sure that the big prizes go to the nicest army and the most sporting player, not
Well,
necessarily first, second, and third.
they are all big prizes
Mm.
for starters, but
I wanted to win the bloody best sporting one, and the guy I played on my first game won it instead of me. So I was
yes,
very upset
yes,
about that.
yes,
It's
yeah,
my
he
fault.
won.
I voted for him, but
Yeah, yeah, exactly. He got best army as well with those orcs.
did he?
Which yes,
Oh
yeah,
no,
he
no,
got
no! That's not the
no,
guy I played. The guy I
no,
played was
Greybeard.
no, no, no. I
Oh,
played Chaos Knights. He won the Chainbreaker Knights.
he also won best army.
Did he?
Yeah,
Blimey.
big Greybeard.
Yeah, a big lad with
Yeah,
tattoos.
Sean is it? Yeah,
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 Sean. Sean
yeah, yeah,
Mitchell. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
He had the converted knights. They were like
That's it.
orcs.
That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
he
they
got
were
best
made.
army as well.
Oh, good
He
lad.
won because you missed the very end. He won it by one vote, which yeah, ironically came from David Schmidt
Yeah, I
from
know. Oh,
Glasshammer.
did he
He
nearly win
did.
it?
He almost walked away with everything.
Mm.
If a ladybird had flown in the opposite direction, he probably would have won everything. But he did really well. But yeah, so the Orcs won best army.
Yeah,
They got most sporting, same person.
yeah,
They got most fluffy because there was a converted squig
yeah. There was.
uh, army. They got first place, and they also got last place. Yeah, so squeezed out all the room for Elder there. It was an orc whitewash really.
That is quite impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, that's but yeah, so on the prizes, we tangent away. So the prizes were first, second, and third got a full size bolt gun.
Oh,
You know,
they were brilliant. I saw those. Yeah.
yes, yeah. I was working on those for a while. They were 3D printed. Um, the most sporting prize was the Storm Bolter, which is even larger,
Mm.
and the Chainbreaker Lance. I had people on the Facebook event page vote for which battle set they
I saw
wanted
that.
to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um,
What I
uh,
liked was the little mugs for the last place person.
oh, the trophy you tried.
Yeah, with
The, yeah,
a little golden goblet, a little brass goblet, and
yeah,
on it was
yeah.
engraved "You tried." And I,
I know it's just like it's not insulting, but it's just like yeah, I'm not I'm not unhappy. I'm just disappointed. But yeah,
okay, look, this is all great, but what's coming up? What's happening in the future?
oof.
You got 5 minutes to tell us about what you've got planned and what's happening in the next 6 months or so.
Right, okay. So our next event will be a 1 day, 2,000 point um, event on the 3rd of February
I'm going to be
next
there.
year. That's yeah, a 1 day, and the prizes are going to be plasma pistols.
Yay!
They're already done, uh, so they're all the same, um, except that Most Sporting gets a older model plasma pistol, just to make it a little bit different.
Cool.
Um, after that, we have on March 16th and 17th, we have our 2 day event, which is going to be exactly like the event that's just happened. So that's Battlefield Birmingham 2022.
Oh, do you know what? That's my birthday.
Oh, what an excuse to come down with all your friends and
What?
drink beer. Oh, it would be terrible if you couldn't see your friends and
What a
play
nightmare.
games
What
and
a nightmare. What else have you got?
drink
What else have you
elite.
got? Anything?
We have those two are booked. The event pages are going up this week before I go away for a week. And um, in May, we haven't got a set date for this. That'll be when our doubles will be in May.
Okay.
But the important thing is Feb is Battlefield Birmingham Annihilation. 1 day, Saturday, 16th and 17th of March is Battlefield Birmingham 22. So if you've missed out on the 21, we've got 22 coming up. It's going to be exactly like what you've just had.
Mm.
And I expect the interest to really ramp up for this one.
Yeah. I've got to say, for those people that haven't done a 1 dayer, they're really good fun.
Yeah,
And it doesn't completely wreck your weekend as well. So it's kind of a nice thing to do once in a while. And I really like the 1 days. If you're within drivable distance, it's
yeah.
well worth going.
But it's great that we're located in the middle and
Yeah.
not far from the motorway.
Well,
So
there's another thing to point out. You are what 5 minutes off the M5?
yeah, junction 3, 4, whatever.
Yes, whatever it is down there.
Yeah.
It's not difficult to get to as well. That's brilliant. I will be promoting it every week I can, every chance I get to my listener.
Yeah.
So
The
let's hope that he turns up.
yeah the oh the tickets will go live Friday morning for these.
Well,
Um,
so that's Friday, what, the
coming up
28th?
27th, isn't it? What day? No, yeah, Friday the 27th. So
Yep.
of October. So those tickets will go live then. I am just working on the event pages as I speak, and I hopefully will get quite a bit of traction for these
I'm sure you will.
because nothing but the word of mouth has been absolutely brilliant, and I can't wait to have everyone back. If I could have a complete repeat of the last event, I would be happy as Larry. So,
I would be, but I don't want to play any Eldar. If you could arrange that, that would be fantastic.
well, there's plenty of time for another nerf, isn't there?
There
So,
is definitely time. By then, God knows what will have happened. But I think my Necrons might have had a codex by then.
Yes,
So
you are lined up for a codex, aren't you?
anything could happen.
Yes, you're getting the new model. I remember now. Yes,
Oh, it's all getting exciting. It's
that's
getting
all you get.
exciting.
That one new model. There
Yeah.
you go.
Well, what else? I don't deserve anything else for the way I'm playing at the moment.
Ah,
Harry,
that's all right.
Harry,
Yeah,
that's great. So let's just get this right. The singles is on the 3rd of February. The
correct.
doubles is the 16th and 17th of March, which is
Uh,
my birthday weekend for those who know.
not doubles. It's the 2 day.
Oh, the 2-dayer, that's right.
Yeah.
And the tickets for both of those events are
Mhm.
available from this Friday, the 27th of October.
Correct.
How
Yeah.
do people get hold of those tickets, mate?
Okay. We have an event page on Facebook, and there'll be the list of events on there. And from there, you'll be able to get all the information. The rules packs will be out as soon as possible. The ticket links will be up there on Friday, and uh, if you can follow and like the page, you'll be notified of any updates, funny goings-ons before the event, and just generally a good place to go and take the mickey out of other people. So,
Fantastic.
no worries.
Harry, that is fabulous. Thank you very much for spending some time talking to me about it. I ran an event for 10 years, and I got to say it takes up a lot of your time, and so I do appreciate the work that you've put in.
No worries. Yes, I know. Yeah, thank you.
Anytime, mate. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks, Harry. Brilliant stuff. Really enjoyed talking to you. Looking forward to coming along to your next events next year. Be terrific. Okay. I am planning a podcast that might be a bit controversial. Next week, Alex isn't here. He's away sunning himself, but I'm going to be hoping to get somebody else to talk to. And this is going to be about meta lists, copy and paste lists from players that have won events across the world that you can now pick up free of charge, FOC, on sites like Goonhammer. I love Goonhammer. It's one of the best, most informed sites that you can read. So if you're not reading anything else, read Goonhammer, listen to their reviews of army lists. They're great. Here's my thesis. My thesis is that the meta game is fantastic if you're in those top 10% of players. If you're going to win 5-0 at a tournament, it's great, because the tournament players at that level have manufactured an environment where they know the kind of lists they're going to be facing. It's very rare they get a list that they're not used to seeing. So they take a list that performs well in that environment. Further down the tournament rankings, if you plan to go 3-2 or 4-1, my thesis is that that is a different meta. It's no good if you're only going to be operating on the winning 2 or 3. It makes no difference if you take a meta list or a list that you might enjoy putting stuff in that nobody sees, because you're not going to be fighting those big meta lists down there. And if you are, they're probably driven by somebody who doesn't know what they're doing with them. So my question is to the listeners: do you need to take a high-powered faction or detachment that is going to do well if you're in the top five, if you're in the top peer of players? But if you're only going to win 3 or even 4, do you need to do that? Or could you take a list that is reasonably good, but perhaps has some skew units in it that aren't top tier, but they're really cool? And it won't make any difference because you're only going to win 3 or 4 anyway, and you'll still win 3 or 4. My view is that there is a different meta there. My supplementary to that is the question: if you take a skew list, can you beat a top tier player with a top tier list if he gets drawn against you in the first round? If you've got a skew list that can do it and you're good enough, is that something that we should encourage in order to inject a little bit more diversity into the top players? I don't know. And frankly, injecting anything into the top players is something that I'm not too keen on. But let's give it some thought, make some notes, come back to me. If you're listening on YouTube, make a comment, like. If you're not listening on YouTube, you can still leave a voice message on Spotify. So let me know what you think. Is there a different meta if you're not going to win all 5 to those top 10% of players? Interesting to think about, because it gives some of us the opportunity, the freedom to take lists that we might just think are cool. Think about it. And until then, see you on the ice.